Never throw away a beer can, because the aluminium can is endlessly recyclable. But at some point, we had to dig it out of the ground. Whenever I'm asked what I do at a dinner party, and I say I'm a mining and metals analyst, there is sometimes a silence, sometimes a bit of a look, and sometimes even a horrified gasp, as if I am single-handedly raising up the seas or cranking up the atmospheric temperature. And this was never more obvious than in 2019 when I attended an international mining conference in Melbourne. And the police had to hold back protesters who were yelling obscenities at me and trying to physically attack me for being a member of the mining industry. And yet later, when I snuck out the back to go grab some lunch, I saw these same protesters on their phones, on their laptops, no doubt sharing on the socials the day's activities, and sitting at a foldable aluminium table that they had brought with them. And that's what my talk is about, providence. Where do manufactured goods start their journey? And why, contrary to what some of those protesters might think, we do need mining for the future of our planet. Show of hands if you have a smartphone with you today. Show of hands if you arrived here today by train. Some of you. Or maybe by car. Some of you maybe an electric car, maybe a Tesla. It seems that many of us rely on mining whether we like it or not. That phone has over 40 minerals and metals from maybe 20 different mines in as many countries. The train, iron ore and coal for the steel, bauxite for the aluminium. The electric vehicle has lithium, graphite, nickel, and wow, 7 times more copper than the one that uses petrol. And when you plug in your electric vehicle into the wall, it's connecting to an electricity grid with a substantial amount of copper wire. And these are all absolutely the right things to do. I mean, as we live our modern lives, we need all of these things. And yet it does matter, because to deal with climate change, we need to radically change our energy and industrial system. We need to produce energy differently. We need to consume energy differently. And to do this, we need to understand where our manufactured goods come from and how we can produce them more sustainably. And a large part of that answer is mining. Mining is integral to who we are as 21st century humans and to us as Australians. Mining is also a large part of my heritage. My family is from Wales. My great-grandfather was a coal miner, and I grew up living in mining villages in South Africa, as my dad is a metallurgist who designs and operates smelters. The oldest mine in the world is also in Africa, in Eswatini, where tools have been carbon dated back to 41,000 BCE. And the use of metals became really widespread in Egypt and Mesopotamia in about 3000 BC. And mining began to truly evolve with Roman innovations. And our way of life today is based on the use of fossil fuels that powered the Industrial Revolution, that forms the basis of so much of our technology. Mining used to be done with simple tools like picks, hammers, chisels, and pans. And up until the beginning of the previous century, mining was imbued with folklore. The Welsh, for example, believed in mining goblins who lived inside mines and used to tap inside the walls to show where the new deposits were. And some speculate that Tolkien built on this idea in Lord of the Rings, when he created these vast underground cities with their mines and their dwarves skilled in mining. And precious stones and gems were such a large part of their culture. And I'm sure many of you remember that iconic scene when Gollum is so desperate to get back my precious from Frodo. And mining is also integral to us, as I said, as Australians, and it's a large part of our economy. And yet, as one journalist notes, Malcolm Knox, he says it's often pushed aside by romantic images of the Australian farmer or the jolly swagman. And I think this is because there are downsides to mining. The rock to metal ratio, for starters. To get 1 ton of iron ore, 9 tons of rock needs to be moved and processed. To get 19 grams of gallium, a rare earth that we use in our laptops, our EV control systems, and solar panels, a ton of rock has to be moved and processed. And gold, 3 tons to get 1 tiny gram, which I'm sure gives you a new perspective if you're wearing a gold wedding ring. So all that rock and waste that's moved and processed has to be stored in a big waste dam or tailings dam. And I'm sure many of you would have heard of the tragedies that happen when the mud escapes from these dams, the loss of life and the devastation of surrounding landscapes. So the chemicals used, the emissions produced, the biodiversity that is moved and sometimes lost, or the fatalities that can happen using such large machinery, or in the case of smelting, such high temperatures. These are all part of the downsides. And sometimes there is a lack of human rights. There is child labour associated with some of the metals that we have in our laptops or in our electric vehicles. But I don't want immense human suffering to have a phone or to have a laptop. And I'm pretty sure most of you don't either. We want to have our technology, but we want to have a clean conscience. And yet, to keep the temperature rise of the Earth below 2 degrees, we need a lot more EVs. And we need to power those EVs and our homes and our businesses with renewable energy. And to do that, we need a significant expansion of our electricity network. And none of that is possible without minerals, without metals, without mining. So how much more mining do we need? Well, Guillaume Pitron in his book Rare Metal Wars says that over the next 30 years, we will need to mine more than we have for the last 70,000 years. I might say that again because that's quite a statistic. Over the next 30 years, we need to mine more than we ever have before. Copper is integral to all of our products and infrastructure, so much so that the copper price is said to be a leading indicator of economic health. Today, there are about 650 copper mines in the world, enabling the production of 26 million tons of refined copper. To change our energy system, on a conservative estimate, we will need to be producing 41 million tons of copper every year by 2050. That requires at least 40 large-scale copper mines, or maybe 200 average-sized ones. And that's before we even talk about replacing the ones that are running out. The International Energy Agency that tracks the progress of the energy transition backs that up with statistics that show that we will need 1,000% more lithium, double the amount of nickel to change our energy system. So how do we do that? How do we do that in a way that protects the environment but also supports people to prosper? Today, mining is on a journey to being more high-tech and sustainable. High-tech tools like satellites and drones help to find new deposits with less disturbance. Tailings dams, like these large ones, these large waste dams, are now increasingly dry stacked to keep them safer. Renewable energy is used on mining operations to reduce emissions, and mining vehicles are smaller, automated, and electrified. And people are kept safe in remote operating centres like this one, with large computer screens, gamer chairs, a very different view of what a mining job might be. And once the mining is done, the land can be returned to what it was before, or even something better, like a recreational lake in Western Australia, or which used to be a coal mine, or the scenic railway, which is where they used to haul coal out of the Jamison Valley. But it's not just about digging deeper and extracting more. It's also about innovation and sustainability. And the idea of a circular economy is really gaining momentum. Some think that a circular economy is about recycling, but it's way more than that. It's an entire systems change. Some liken it to the ways of nature, so like a water cycle or the change in seasons, or maybe even the flow of matter through a forest floor. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation defines a circular economy as being based on 3 principles. 1, eliminate all waste. 2, recycle and reuse products and materials for as long as possible. And 3, regenerate nature. And all of this is based on the use of renewable energy. It is a resilient system that is good for people, good for business, and also good for the environment. Mining companies are starting to reassess their traditional operating model of take, use, dispose, and thinking about how to integrate some of these circular economy principles into their operations. So perhaps eliminating waste at all points, or remining old waste with higher tech to extract more minerals, or getting involved at the end of life of products like recycling batteries. And I like this quote by J.D. Morris, which says that history tells us that a value shift is triggered by the creation of a new story of how we want to live. So let's understand where our goods come from so that we can tell that new circular economy story. Now, I acknowledge that this is complex, but I do think we need to be honest about where our manufactured goods come from. And we as consumers and manufacturers need to be prepared to pay more for ethical and sustainable products, just like we do for our organic vegetables. And we as a community and consumers also need to demand transparency of our industrial and energy system. Because that way we can keep those phones and all those technology that we like so much, and yet still build an electrified world based on clean, green energy, with the products of sustainable mining and within a circular economy. So let us all work together to build that greener future for ourselves and for future generations. And maybe that beer can could be the new part of the frame of a solar panel. Maybe it'll just be another beer can. Never throw away a beer can.